Good morning, everyone. It's me again, Ryan Mears, your instructor for English 102. You will see a little symbol in the middle of my screen right there. That's just from the camera that I'm using because the camera on my computer is not working. So we had to figure something else out today. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about Introduction to Narrative Genre, which is what you're learning about in this whole unit and what your final major writing assignment for this unit, so major writing assignment 1, will culminate in. Um, but before that, I just wanted to say I loved reading everything that you guys had to say about yourself and the getting to know you discussion post. That was really nice. And I realized I did not give you any kind of information about me. So I just wanted to start this off telling you a little bit about myself. I am I was born in Lexington, South Carolina, and I went to USC, and then I went to majored in English, went to college at Charleston, and started my master's, and then said, oh my gosh, I've lived basically in the same place my whole life. So I just packed up one day and I moved to Boston because, like any good English major, I just chose the place where my favorite authors had lived. And Boston was it. So I moved to Boston, lived there for 4 years and loved it. Moved back to Charleston, finished my master's, which is how I became a teacher, and met my husband and started our life there. And then we ended up moving back to Lexington to be closer to my family once baby number 2 started to come along. So actually, I have a little slideshow. Let me start off. Okay, let me figure out. Okay, gonna figure out. Sorry, I'm not using PowerPoint today. I'm trying something new with Google Slides. So let's share my screen first. Let's just do my whole desktop. Okay, here we go. So these are my children, Delaney and Dylan. They are wonderful. They just turned 3 and 5. They're wonderful and wild. Man, this girl's gonna be around for my money. Delaney just started kindergarten this year. And this was actually taken this morning of Dylan on her first day of preschool. She's my one. This one has big emotions but is sweet and cuddly. This one, she's just, I just call her my little monkey because she's always curious and getting into everything. If you have kids, you know what I mean. If you have nieces or nephews, you know what I mean. So yeah, these are my kids. I have a husband and a dog and a cat as well. But currently, these 2 are the cutest ones to be looking at. My dog's name is Pippa. She's wonderful. And Bunchy, my cat, is my cat. And Tyler's my husband. And I like to go camping. I like to garden. I like to be outside. And obviously I love all the things I do with English. I love reading. I like writing sometimes. And I love movies and TV shows. And if anyone were going to play me in a movie, it would be not because she loves the outdoors or anything, but it would be Mindy Kaling because I love that she has 2 kids. She's a working mom. She is very creative. I have read both of her books, and I love The Office, and I especially love The Mindy Project. And I just felt like Mindy Lahiri was just trying to have it all, and so am I. And this is also me. So I would choose Mindy Kaling because I really like her. Okay, so intro to narrative genre. Let's start off with what is narrative genre? It's a very fancy word for storytelling. So Ellie Sandberg on her website, Creatures of the Ocean, says, a narrative is literature that tells a story from the point of the narrator. There is generally a single event or a sequence of connected events with characters, setting, and plot. All of these things can be real or fictional. The defining characteristic of a narrative is the main character who serves as the point of the story being told. Okay, sounds pretty self-explanatory. It's called narrative genre because it's told from the point of view of the narrator, which is you in this case. And it's not an overarching like general conglomeration of who you are. It's usually a story. Like if you asked me, what's your favorite restaurant to eat at and why, I might tell you, well, my favorite restaurant to eat at is this place, and here's why. And I'll tell you a specific story about this one time when I went and got this really delicious, and my favorite place to eat is Estes. I got this really delicious wing snack, and it was in between classes, and it was just, oh my gosh, it was so good. Not a very interesting story, but it is a story, and it's a specific story. And it has to be a sequence of connected events, or I'm sorry, a single event or a sequence of connected events with character, setting, and plot. Okay. So honestly, a story, and again, it does not have to be fictional. It can be a real story, and it doesn't have to be a real story. It can be a story you made up. So for this class, for this unit, we're going to be telling a real story, but I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to know if you made it up or not. I've never met you. I don't know your life. So just putting that out there. But it has to be connected. It can't just be like a series of random things that you're telling me. Okay. So it's all narrative is a storytelling story. You are just telling me a story. And for the major writing assignment 1 in this class, you are going to be telling me a story, but you're going to be doing it through a comic strip, which I'll talk about in a minute. Okay, so how do we tell a narrative? I mean, it might sound easy to tell a story, but if you've ever told a story in your life, you know how easy it can be to get off track, go on a tangent, or just kind of get lost in your own story and get stuck on details that don't matter. So how do we tell an effective story? We determine the rhetorical situation. You might remember a rhetorical situation from English 101. And there are a lot of things I can say about it. You probably learned that there was a triangle, and the triangle is the rhetorical situation is determining the relationship between the author, the audience, and the text. Okay? But I'm going to boil it down to 2 questions you really need to ask yourself for narrative genre. To determine the rhetorical situation, you need to ask, why am I telling the story? Am I telling the story because someone is asking me for recommendations on preschool and I want to tell them about my experience at this preschool or this gym or, this restaurant? So why am I telling the story? Is it for a recommendation? So they need to hear, like there's specific things, right, that you need to be telling in order to fulfill a recommendation request. Did someone ask you if you had a good time on your vacation? Okay, well, they want to know like what the overall feeling was. So I'm going to choose a story that kind of like represents the whole vacation and how it went. So I want you to determine, which I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you why you're telling me the story, but I'm going to ask you to tell me. Determine it so you can figure out what it is you want to say, and you can narrow it down to the most specific things, the most important things about the story that you feel are representative of your experience as a whole. And then you're going to figure out, to whom are you telling the story? You're going to figure out your audience. I think that I don't have to explain that too much, except to say, a story that you are telling small children at, career day about your job is going to be much different than a story you tell your coworkers or your significant other when you go home, or to someone who's looking to get a job at your company. You might tell the same story, but you're going to tell it 3 different ways, right? You're going to use different words. You're going to use different tone. You're going to need to select different details, right? So you're going to figure out who your audience is. And there you have it. That's how you're going to determine rhetorical situation. You're also going to use ethos, logos, and pathos. A quick review of those. Ethos is credibility, so why should we believe you? If I am telling you, someone says, oh, I'm trying to figure out what preschool to go to. And sorry, preschool's on the brain this morning. What preschool I want to send my kids to, and I just don't know. I can say, oh, well, I can tell you about this one because my child goes to this preschool. Okay, that's my credibility. Here's why you should believe me. I have personal experience, or I work at this school, or I, yeah, those are really the only two credibility things I can think of for that. But it's really like, what is it about you? What experience do you have? What relationship with this story do you have that makes me want to believe you? Okay. Um, we'll talk about that a little bit more in relation to what I'm assigning you. But you need to use ethos because you need to tell people why should I listen to the story in the first place? You know, what skin do you have in this game? Basically. Logos is logic. We all hate stories that have plot holes, right? Or, I mean, when we come to movies, like we do need to suspend our belief a little bit. But there are times when we're like, oh my gosh, like I love a good horror movie. I love it so much. But 90% of the time, much of this could have been avoided if someone had not run into the house, right? Like, oh my gosh, there's something scary happening in the woods. I'm gonna run into this even creepier house. It's gonna be a good movie, but that logically does not make sense. Um, so it needs to be logical, okay? It needs to make sense. And then pathos, your emotion. You know, what is making me feel emotionally connected to this story? Is it funny? Is it gonna make me cry? Is it going to make me think? Is it gonna be something I have to interpret at the end? Um, those those also help us determine genre, right? Like all those things I just said. Is it gonna make me feel lovey-dovey? Like that's our romance, our comedy, our drama, our those movies that are just like it has the interpretive ending. We're watching a show right now, and I really like it, but I've told my husband I'm gonna be really mad if we get to the end of this, and then there's some like inconclusive interpretive ending to this because I need answers. So, um, you're determining the genre. Like, is it gonna be something I'm laugh at? And why should it be funny? Do we feel like people relate to us more than when we're funny, or is it gonna be something that really makes me think about like my relationship to whatever it is you're talking about? Um, if you are doing a piece on global warming, is it necessarily something we want to laugh at? Is it hilarious, or does it does it need to be something that we think about and think about like our relationship to recycling and carbon footprint and all the things that go into that? So determine what kind of emotion you want to put into this. Okay. So why are we learning about narrative genre? How does this help you? Well, in this class, it's going to help you figure out how to determine your writing voice, number one. It's going to help you figure out, it's an easy way to figure out, like get back into the swing of things, of rhetorical situation, and audience, and tone. It's going to help you write major writing assignment 1, which I'm going to tell you about in just a second. So those are pretty important things, right? But here's where I feel like we get the most out of this, because I feel like English 101 and 102, we come to them and we are like, I just have to take these to get through my degree. And I know that specifically because some of you were so wonderfully honest, and I love it, and I'm here for it, and I always want to hear like you're completely like unadulterated, like this is my feeling about this. I get it. I get it so much because I felt those ways. I'm an English teacher. I love English. And I felt those ways when I was taking English classes. Like, when am I going to use this in my real life? Well, if you took English 101 with me, you know I have a whole thing about it. Like, you use a bunch of these things all the time, right? Rhetorical situation, gosh, we use that all the time in our real life when we're thinking about, you know, how like this series of events happened and my boss wants to know what happened. I need to determine my relationship between my boss and the story and myself, right? To determine how I'm going to tell the story. It's going to be way different than when I come home and I'm like, babe, you got to listen to what happened at work, right? So we use rhetorical situation all the time in our real lives. Narrative genre, we do that too. You're going to become a better storyteller, and being a good storyteller is a completely underrated task because we tell stories all the time, whether it's how was your vacation or your boss is asking you, what did you do this weekend, or um tell me how like the meeting went with these people. You need to be a good storyteller, okay? You need to be able to tell a succinct, clear story without going off on a tangent or making people so bored that they just like want you to stop talking. So it's really important to know how to do this. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Here's how Major Writing Assignment 1 is gonna work. You've already kind of done this, right? This unit is asking you to tell a story, and I sort of asked you to do that by introducing yourself. You determined your audience, which was me and your classmates. You use that information to choose things to tell us that you thought may connect us to you. And in return, I did that with some of your feedback. I was like, oh, hey, I noticed that thing on your desk, or hey, cool coffee table. We choose things depending on our audience of what to say. So you chose things to tell us, and then you wrote it down. Author, audience, text. Okay, you determine the rhetorical situation. This unit is just asking you to do that on a larger but more focused scale. You are going to tell a story to us through a comic strip that I'm asking you to draw a comic strip, but if you are artsy and love drawing and you want to draw a comic strip, go for it. Here for it. I'm also here for you if you do not draw. My daughter loves when I draw things and puts them in her lunchbox, and they're usually like stick figures. So I'm not a drawer either. But there are several, I have listed several in the course, several soft or websites that will help you do it for free. Canva, Pixton, Storyboard that. Do you not dare, don't you dare pay for any of them. Do you understand? Don't pay for anything. Everything should be free. And if it's like, you have to pay to publish this, do not publish it. Screenshot it. Submit your screenshots. Do not pay for anything in this class. The textbook was more than enough. Okay, so you're going to do that through a comic strip, whether it's something you draw or you digitally create. And because, that's kind of a big thing to be able to do now, to be able to diversify how you present yourself, how you present writing. On my business majors, you're probably going to have to do something with pictures at some point to like illustrate ideas. But anyways, so you're telling me a story through a comic strip. We're going to call it a digital narrative about a time that technology worked well or poorly for you. Okay, here's where people get tripped up sometimes. I don't want you to tell me like a series of general things about technology, okay? Think about your relationship with technology. Mine's complicated. Love it. Mess up on it a lot. And I'll tell you a story about that as an example in a second. And I'll even make a comic strip later. But the story should represent on a symbolic level your overall relationship with technology. Do you hate it? Tell me a story about something that happened with technology that just made you super hate it. Do you love technology? Tell me about a time that technology worked for good in your life then. But it needs to be a representation of like your overall feeling. Example, I have a very complicated relationship with technology. I love to use it. There are great things about it. It's very convenient. But, I don't I'm not a master at it, and sometimes it is very aggravating. I was in a Zoom meeting not too long ago for a meeting before classes started for our department. And I was really happy that we were doing a Zoom meeting because it was also my daughter's fifth birthday, and it was the night before. I'm sorry, yeah, it was the night before school started. So I'm sorry, it was the night that school started. So we had had our first day of kindergarten, which is a thing. Everyone's very tired by the end of that day, and it was her birthday. It was a big day for us, and I was really upset because this meeting was at 6 o'clock, which is dinner time, and it was going to go through bedtime. But it was great because we had a Zoom meeting, and we had a Zoom option, and very convenient. I can do it from home. I can kind of like do this while also doing this. Well, the meeting lasted a long time, and my husband in the background said, "How long is this meeting going to be?" And I said, "I don't know, Tyler. This always happens." And I started to tell a story about one of my coworkers and a funny thing he said about the length of our in-service meetings. And my boss says, "Hey, someone's mic is on." Dead, dead. I fell on the floor. I'm pretty sure my phone like clattered to the ground and I was hitting mute. So embarrassing. So embarrassing. The wonderful ending of the story is that I actually reconnected with that old coworker that I had not talked to in a long time because COVID and all the things. He reached out and he's like, "Ha ha ha, I know exactly what story you're about to tell." And actually, my boss didn't even hear what I was saying because he said it was very garbled. It obviously wasn't that garbled because my old friend heard me say his name very clearly. So, a funny little story about how I have a complicated relationship with technology. That's all you're doing. And I'm gonna make a comic strip to go with that whole thing. Okay. So your process assignment 1 and 2 are going to be like lead ups into this. And we're gonna put it into the discussion posts. We're gonna get some feedback so it won't be too bad, guys. I promise. Okay. It's our first one. If you need anything, I want you to reach out as much as you want. You can text me, you can call me, you can email me. If you call me, please leave a message because I do not ever answer my phone because the car extended warranty and there's a warrant out for your arrest. Please send us a Walgreens gift card to take care of this mess. That sort of thing. So if you do call me, leave me a message and I will call you back as soon as I can. Okay, that's it. If you have any questions, let me know. Bye, guys.